Do you live in the Philippines? Do you have family in Mindanao, in General Santos City, in Sarangani, in Davao, or anywhere across the southern islands? If the answer is yes, you need to watch this full video, because what happened on the morning of June 8th, 2026, and what is still happening right now as you're watching this, is one of the most serious and ongoing seismic disasters this country has seen in years. And the situation is not over, not even close. At exactly 7:37 in the morning, while millions of children across Mindanao were heading to school for the first day of the academic year, while families were eating breakfast, while fishermen were heading out toward the coast, the ground beneath southern Mindanao fractured without warning. A magnitude 7.8 earthquake tore through the region, its epicenter traced to a point approximately 32 kilometers south-southwest of Masim in Sarangani province, at a depth of 33 kilometers beneath the surface of the earth. Within seconds, buildings were crumbling. Within minutes, the ocean itself was reacting. And within hours, the full scale of what had just happened began to come into focus, and it was devastating. The USGS confirmed the magnitude. The Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, known as PHIVOLCS, confirmed the depth and the origin. This was not a minor tremor that people would brush off. This was a full-scale major earthquake, the kind that reshapes coastlines, collapses reinforced concrete structures, sends landslides cascading down hillsides, and generates tsunamis that roll towards shore with almost no warning at all. And this one did all of those things simultaneously. But here's the problem. This earthquake did not stop when the initial shaking ended. As of the morning of June 11th, PHIVOLCS had recorded a staggering 3,019 aftershocks. In the days since the main shock, 3,019 separate seismic events. That number is not a typo. 3 of those aftershocks measured magnitude 6, 0 or higher. The largest aftershock in the sequence registered at magnitude 6, 7. For context, a magnitude 6. 7 earthquake on its own is considered a major earthquake. People have died in magnitude 6, 7 earthquakes. Yet here, in southern Mindanao right now, a 6. 7 is just the largest aftershock in a sequence of over 3,000. The ground has not stopped moving. Families who survived the initial quake are sleeping outdoors, too afraid to go back inside their own homes. Because every time the earth begins to shake again, they do not know if what is coming is another aftershock or the beginning of something even worse. And now it gets worse, because this earthquake did not just shake the ground, it disturbed the sea. Within minutes of the main shock, PHIVOLCS issued tsunami warnings across the southern Philippines. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center extended those alerts to Indonesia, Palau, Taiwan, and Papua New Guinea. Coastal communities were ordered to evacuate immediately, to leave everything behind and move to higher ground without delay. And the waves came. Along the coasts of Sarangani, Sultan Kudarat, Davao Oriental, Zamboanga City, and Surigao del Sur, tsunami waves measuring up to 1. 4 meters were recorded between 7:42 and 8:45 in the morning. The Philippine Coast Guard suspended all vessel operations entirely. 6 shanties on stilts in a coastal village in Zamboanga del Sur were damaged by the combination of the quake and the elevated waves. In Indonesia, waves were detected at Katy in North Maluku province, at Ulusiao, and at Melonguane, with the highest wave at Talingansulat reaching 5 meters. In Japan, waves measuring 20 centimeters were observed in the Ogasawara Islands and in Kushimoto, Wakayama Prefecture. Tsunami observations were recorded even in Okinawa. Even in Palau, a 3-centimeter wave was measured. This was not a local event. The entire ocean around southern Mindanao responded. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center did not lift the broader regional threat until approximately 5 hours after the main shock. 5 hours. And in those 5 hours, thousands of families along hundreds of kilometers of coastline did not know whether the sea was going to surge again. This next part matters, because the numbers coming out of southern Mindanao right now describe a humanitarian disaster that is still deepening. As of the latest reporting from the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, known as the NDRRMC, 47 people have been confirmed killed, 688 people have been injured. 31 individuals are still reported missing. And in a disaster where landslides buried roads and buildings collapsed without warning, the likelihood of finding those missing individuals alive decreases with each passing day. The majority of the fatalities were recorded in 2 regions: Sarangani, which includes Sarangani and South Cotabato, and the Davao region. In General Santos City alone, at least 9 people were killed as the earthquake caused widespread structural damage across what is one of the most important urban centers in Mindanao. In the town of Glan in Sarangani, the mayor himself reported up to 20 deaths based on initial counts, though the full provincial toll continues to be validated. More than 12,600 houses have been confirmed damaged or destroyed across Mindanao. 12,600 homes. That means over 12,000 families right now have either no home at all or a home that is too dangerous to enter. These are not abstract statistics. These are families with children. These are grandparents who built those homes over decades. These are people who woke up on the morning of June 8th expecting an ordinary Monday and found instead that everything they owned had either collapsed or cracked beyond safe use. But that is not the real story. The real story is the scale of infrastructure destruction that is making rescue, relief, and recovery so difficult. The Department of Public Works and Highways reported 18 damaged bridges in Sarangani alone, 6 of which were rendered nearly impassable. 41 roads were affected across the region, with approximately 20 of them entirely blocked. In Malapatan, one of the towns recorded at intensity 8, the highest shaking intensity in the entire earthquake sequence, the Masla Bridge was forced to close after its structural beams were found to be compromised by the shaking. In Glan, landslides cascaded down hillsides during the tremor, blocking roads and striking vehicles. Falling rocks hit moving cars on mountain roads. Several sections of the Jensanteboli-Suralao Road were temporarily closed after Department of Public Works engineers found them inaccessible to motorists. The General Santos International Airport had its operations temporarily suspended before being allowed to resume on a limited basis. For days after the earthquake, some communities in the most remote parts of the affected zone remained completely cut off from the outside world. The Office of Civil Defense confirmed on Wednesday, June 10th, that areas initially isolated had only just been reached by government responders. This is where it becomes dangerous, because when roads are cut, when bridges are compromised, when airports are shut, it means supplies cannot get in and people cannot get out. It means a family with an injured member cannot reach a hospital. It means a village running low on clean water has no way of being resupplied. It means the most vulnerable people, the elderly, the children, the injured, are trapped behind the same landslides and collapsed bridges that the earthquake created. The school system took a catastrophic blow. This earthquake struck on the very first day of the Philippine school year. Millions of children were arriving at campuses across Mindanao when the ground moved. PHIVOLCS reported intensity 8 shaking in Malapatan. Students at a school in Barangay Upper Suyan panicked and cried as the quake hit. Students at Santa Cruz National High School in Davao del Sur sustained minor injuries and some lost consciousness. The Department of Education assessed the damage and found the numbers extraordinary. 1,023 classrooms across the region received minor damage. 296 classrooms were severely damaged, and 199 classrooms were completely destroyed. The DepEd estimated cleanup and clearing operations alone would require more than 79 million Philippine pesos. Repairing all the damaged classrooms is projected to cost an additional 9 million pesos. An entire generation of students in southern Mindanao has had their school year interrupted before it even properly began. One more thing you need to know. The power grid across the south of Mindanao has been severely disrupted. The National Grid Corporation of the Philippines reported damage to transmission lines serving a sweeping list of provinces: Davao del Sur, Davao Occidental, Davao de Oro, Davao Oriental, Maguindanao del Norte, Maguindanao del Sur, Sarangani, South Cotabato, North Cotabato, and Sultan Kudarat. 10 provinces, a massive portion of Mindanao, dealing with damaged or destroyed electrical transmission infrastructure simultaneously. No power means no pumps, no refrigeration for medicine and food, no charging of communication devices, no lights at night in evacuation centers, no ability to run the medical equipment that injured survivors in hospital beds depend on. And tonight changed the timeline because multiple local and provincial governments have now formally declared states of calamity, unlocking emergency funds and extraordinary powers that are typically reserved only for the most catastrophic events. Sarangani province declared a province-wide state of calamity on Wednesday, June 10th, 2 days after the main shock. Governor Rogelio Pacquiao signed an executive order implementing province-wide emergency measures. The towns of Glan and Malapatan formally passed resolutions declaring their own states of calamity. The town of Alabel, Sarangani's provincial capital, declared a state of calamity through a special session of its municipal council. The Alabel Information Office specifically noted significant damage across barangays Pagasa, New Canaan, Bagachay, and Paraiso. General Santos City, one of the largest and most economically significant cities in the entire southern Philippines, was also placed under a state of calamity, with Mayor Lorelie Pacquiao directing all frontline personnel to report to duty and suspending all classes and government office work until further notice. At the national level, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. ordered disaster response agencies to mobilize immediately, declaring publicly that the national government would not leave Mindanao behind. Most people are missing this context, because to truly understand the danger that Mindanao faces and the danger that has always existed beneath those southern coasts, you have to go back exactly 50 years to a night that people in southern Mindanao still speak about in hushed tones. On August 17, 1976, at 12 minutes past midnight, a magnitude 8.0 earthquake struck the Moro Gulf, with its epicenter beneath the Cotabato Trench off the coast of southern Mindanao. The same Cotabato Trench that PHIVOLCS confirmed generated the June 8th earthquake. The same tectonic structure, the same subduction zone. Just 2 to 5 minutes after the 1976 earthquake began, a massive tsunami surged ashore with waves as high as 9 meters in some locations. The tsunami affected 700 kilometers of coastline along the Moro Gulf and the North Celebes Sea. When the full accounting was done, between 5,000 and 8,000 people were dead or missing. 10,000 more were injured. Approximately 90,000 people were left without homes. The 1976 Moro Gulf earthquake and tsunami remains to this day the deadliest tsunami event in the recorded history of the Philippines, more deadly in terms of direct tsunami casualties than even Super Typhoon Haiyan. The comparison is not meant to cause panic. It is meant to provide context. When PHIVOLCS scientists look at the June 8th earthquake and trace its origin to movement along the Cotabato Trench, they are not looking at an unfamiliar fault system. They are looking at the same structure that produced the most catastrophic single-day death toll in Philippine history. The question that every scientist and every emergency manager in the country is asking right now is whether the Cotabato Trench has fully released its accumulated stress or whether it is still building towards something larger. Here is why this is serious. Aftershock sequences following major earthquakes in subduction zones like the Cotabato Trench are not simply the dying echoes of a single event. They are the Earth recalibrating. They represent continued movement along the fault, continued adjustments in the surrounding crust, and in some cases they serve as precursors to additional large earthquakes. PHIVOLCS has warned explicitly that the aftershock sequence in Mindanao could continue for more than 1 month. 1 month of ongoing seismic activity in a region where thousands of people are already living in damaged homes, where bridges are already compromised, where roads are already blocked. Every new aftershock is another threat to structures that have already been weakened. Every new 6. 0 or higher event is another moment where people sleeping in makeshift tents wonder if the earth is about to fail them again in the most catastrophic way possible. What happened next changed everything for the communities along the southern coast of Mindanao. Because even as rescue teams were still pulling people from rubble on June 8th, the aftershocks were already making their work more dangerous. Rescue workers described the terrifying experience of searching through collapsed structures while the ground continued to move beneath them. A collapsed grocery store in Kalumpang, General Santos City, became the scene of ongoing search and rescue operations that stretched into June 9th, with workers using search and rescue dogs to locate anyone who might still be alive beneath the debris. The Bureau of Fire Protection was simultaneously conducting operations at a damaged commercial building and a warehouse in General Santos City, working against time and against an earth that refused to be still. Across Mindanao, thousands of residents remain in evacuation centers and temporary tent shelters. Funeral wakes for victims are being held outdoors because people are too afraid to gather inside buildings that may still be structurally compromised. Families are sleeping on roadsides. Children who were supposed to start school are instead sitting in evacuation tents, their textbooks and school supplies either buried or inaccessible inside homes. No one is willing to enter. Farmers whose fields and irrigation infrastructure were damaged face losses that could affect their livelihoods for an entire growing season. Fishermen whose boats were damaged or who were ordered off the water during the tsunami warnings face days or weeks without income. The humanitarian picture that is emerging from the assessment operations now underway across Sarangani, Davao, and the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region is one of deep, compounding need. Now the focus shifts to what happens in the coming days and weeks, because this is where the second phase of any major earthquake disaster either succeeds in preventing further suffering or fails catastrophically. With 3,019 aftershocks already recorded, and PHIVOLCS warning the sequence could run for a month or more, the risk of additional casualties from the aftershock sequence alone is real and ongoing. Any building that survived the June 8th main shock with hidden structural damage is being further stressed with every subsequent tremor. Concrete that cracked but did not fail on June 8th may fail completely in a magnitude 5 or 6. 0 aftershock. The magnitude 5 earthquake that struck off Davao Occidental on Thursday, June 12th, serves as a reminder that the Earth is still moving, still adjusting, still capable of generating events large enough to cause additional harm. The Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines extended its notice to airmen for General Santos Airport on Thursday, a sign that the situation at key infrastructure points is still being carefully managed and is not yet back to normal operations. The international community has begun to respond. Agence France-Presse reported casualty figures being tracked in real time. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs documented the earthquake's timing on the first day of the Philippines school year as particularly significant, noting the widespread damage to educational facilities at the precise moment they were being filled with children for the first time in months. The Philippine Red Cross deployed rescue teams immediately, with their photographs of damage in General Santos City circulating around the world. The Cebu Provincial Board approved 10 million Philippine pesos in financial assistance specifically for General Santos City. These are early responses to what is clearly going to be a lengthy and expensive recovery process. But here's the problem that no amount of emergency funding fully solves in the short term. The physical infrastructure damage across this region is not a matter of weeks to repair. 18 damaged bridges in Sarangani alone cannot be rebuilt overnight. The 199 completely destroyed classrooms cannot be reconstructed before the next school week arrives. The transmission lines serving 10 provinces cannot all be restored by Tuesday morning. And the 12,600 families whose homes were damaged or destroyed cannot simply be given new homes before the next set of aftershocks arrives. What PHIVOLCS is watching with particular intensity right now is the behavior of the aftershock sequence itself. The agency has noted that the earthquake's location, its focal mechanism, and the pattern of the aftershocks all point directly to subduction along the Cotabato Trench. This is not a simple strike-slip fault releasing accumulated stress in a single clean break. This is a subduction zone where one of the Earth's tectonic plates is being pushed beneath another, a process that is ongoing, that generates not just isolated earthquakes, but long sequences of seismic activity, and that has the demonstrated capacity, as the 1976 disaster proved, to produce catastrophic tsunamis with almost no warning time. Residents in coastal communities who returned home after the June 8th tsunami warning was lifted were warned explicitly to remain alert. PHIVOLCS reminded the public repeatedly in its official statements to watch for the 3 natural warning signs of an incoming tsunami: strong shaking that makes it difficult to stand, loud roaring sounds from the direction of the ocean, and the sudden withdrawal of the sea from the shore. In a place like Mindanao, where people live close to the ocean and depend on it for their livelihoods, these warnings are not theoretical. They describe a real and ongoing threat that does not disappear when the tsunami warning is officially lifted. The scale of what southern Mindanao is facing right now can be measured in numbers, and those numbers tell a story of cascading, compounding catastrophe. 47 confirmed dead, 688 injured, 31 missing. More than 12,600 homes damaged or destroyed, 18 bridges compromised, 41 roads affected, 1,023 classrooms with minor damage, 296 classrooms severely damaged, 199 classrooms completely gone, transmission lines serving 10 provinces disrupted, 3,019 aftershocks, a state of calamity declared across an entire province in multiple cities, and the mainshock itself only 4 days ago. And tonight changes the timeline for every family still living in Mindanao right now. Because PHIVOLCS has been unambiguous, this sequence is not over. The warning that aftershocks could continue for more than a month was not a worst-case scenario framing. It was a scientific assessment based on what is known about how subduction zone earthquakes behave after a magnitude 7.8 main shock. The Cotabato Trench is one of the most seismically active structures in the entire Asia-Pacific region. It is not a fault that runs empty after a single large event and goes quiet for decades. It is a living, active boundary between tectonic plates that are still moving, still colliding, still generating the kind of seismic energy that people in General Santos City and Sarangani and Davao Occidental felt on the morning of June 8th. What makes this particularly difficult for the people on the ground is the uncertainty. Emergency managers can respond to a defined disaster. They can send rescue teams to a collapsed building. They can distribute food and water to evacuation centers. They can assess bridges and close dangerous roads. What they cannot do is tell the tens of thousands of displaced families exactly when it will be safe to go home. They cannot guarantee that the next 0 aftershock will not bring down a wall that survived June 8th. They cannot promise that the ocean off Sarangani will not respond to a deep aftershock with another wave that rolls toward shore. The uncertainty itself is a form of ongoing trauma, a weight that settles on a community and makes every night in a tent on a roadside feel longer and harder than the one before it. For the people of Mindanao right now, the earthquake of June 8th, 2026, is not a story from the past. It is the immediate, breathing, ongoing present. It is the crack in the wall of a school that parents are not sure is safe for their children. It is the bridge inspector checking beams for the 3rd time before allowing traffic to pass. It is the woman in General Santos City who keeps a bag packed by the door of her tent in case the ground starts moving again, and she needs to run toward higher ground immediately. It is the fisherman in Sarangani who scans the horizon every morning before launching his boat, watching for any sign that the sea is doing something unexpected. The Cotabato Trench does not announce its intentions. It does not give the people who live above it a schedule. It moves when it moves, and it has been moving since long before any human being ever settled the coasts of southern Mindanao, and it will keep moving long after all of this is over. But the question that matters right now, the question that PHIVOLCS scientists and NDRRMC officials and thousands of families in evacuation centers are all sitting with at this moment, is the same question. How much more is coming and when? 3,019 aftershocks in 4 days, 47 confirmed dead, 12,600 homes damaged or destroyed, a province and a city and multiple towns under formal states of calamity, a school year disrupted before it started, bridges broken, roads blocked, power lines down, and a fault system that scientists have warned for decades sits in one of the most seismically dangerous locations on the entire surface of the Earth. The next 72 hours will tell the emergency managers in Mindanao a great deal about whether the worst of this sequence has already passed, or whether the earth beneath Sarangani has more to say. But right now, in the hours since the last major aftershock, in the shelters where thousands of displaced families are trying to sleep, and along the coastlines where tsunami warning signs have been left prominently in place, nobody is making any assumptions. And they are right not to. The situation is still evolving, the ground is still moving. And for the people of southern Mindanao, the disaster that began at 7:37 on the morning of June 8th has not yet ended.